Friends, I welcome you to my channel. Before listening to this story, I will ask you to like and subscribe. It is not difficult for you, but it is pleasant for me. And we're starting. Bonnie Lipton smiled as she drove her BMW onto the highway in Atlanta. She knew that she would arrive home a couple of hours later than planned, but she would just put it down to the famous Atlanta traffic jams. Nick made it so that the delay in leaving was worth the time lost. He is almost 10 years younger than Bonnie and an excellent lover. He is handsome, smart, a great conversationalist, and also young enough to recover quickly. Then Bonnie's thoughts turned to her husband, Ron. He had just turned 44 and lacked Nick's stamina. To make their life very pleasant, he relies on his experience and knowledge of Bonnie's body. After sleeping with Nick, it was always nice to come home and fall asleep in his arms. She realized that she had the best of both worlds, and her smile grew even wider. The further away she got from Atlanta, the less she thought about Nick. He's fun to be with, but Ron and her daughter Casey are the ones she loves. Bonnie wanted to spend time with them now that her libido was completely satisfied. She understood her moods. When she gets home, she will be patient and loving with Ron. He is a wonderful man and an exceptional husband. Casey was athletic and smart. She had a lot of friends from sports and school activities. It's not unusual for 2 or 3 of her girlfriends to gather at the house on weekends. Bonnie enjoyed hanging out with the young women, and they seemed to look up to her as a role model. Bonnie made sure to always be well-dressed. She held an excellent position in an architectural firm and was respected in society. She and Ron were well known both individually and as a couple. Ron was now running his family's successful construction company. He's never been so busy that he doesn't go to all of Casey's activities at school. Bonnie always liked to sit next to Ron when they watched their daughter play or perform. She knew that more than a few other fathers enjoyed sneaking glances at her, but she also noticed that many mothers looked at Ron as if they were vultures, and he was a victim on the road. Even when Bonnie was sitting next to him, women often found time to chat and flirt with him. Her handsome husband never seemed to notice it, but it was all very noticeable to Bonnie. After a few hours on the road, Bonnie pulled into her garage and discovered that her husband's pickup truck was gone. It was unusual and unexpected. Bonnie felt her mood begin to change. The least her husband could do was be at home to meet her after a grueling business conference and a long drive home. The house was empty when Bonnie went to the master bedroom. She couldn't figure out what caused it, but a sickening feeling arose deep in her gut. It was almost lunchtime, and there was no one at home. The next day is Thursday, which means Ron has a job and Casey has school. That means they should be home soon, so Bonnie unpacked before taking a shower. Thinking about Ron and Casey's inexplicable absence, Bonnie remembered that her phone was turned off. It had been turned off since dinner the previous evening. On the way home, she was lost in thought and did not think about why no one was calling her. Ron might have been angry because she hadn't called to thank him for the string of pearls. The night before, when Nick had lit her fire, she had completely forgotten about him. Wiping her hair with a towel, she turned on her phone. Ron congratulated himself once again that he had managed to implement a simple but brilliant plan to please and surprise his wife. He had known for months about her planned conference in Atlanta. Bonnie visited them twice a year. As fate would have it, this conference fell on his 20th wedding anniversary. A few weeks earlier, Ron had been approached about building a large vacation home for a family from Atlanta. As soon as the business part of the meeting was over, and Ron felt comfortable with the client, Boyd Drake, he expressed an idea that had only recently formed in his head. "Boyd, on the 10th of next month, it's our anniversary. My wife will be attending a conference in downtown Atlanta. I would like to surprise her and her colleague with a nice dinner at a nice restaurant somewhere near her hotel. To top it all off, I bought a pearl necklace that I would like to be presented to her at the table when she has dinner." "My daughter should arrange this for you," Boyd said. "She's in college now and knows all the good places in the city. She could have seen to it that the necklace got into your wife's hands. It looks like you're planning on getting lucky when your wife gets home. Why don't you just go with her to Atlanta and deliver it yourself?" "I've offered in the past, but Bonnie insists she's too busy to spend time with me. She will have dinner late and return to the hotel as soon as possible to rest the next day. I have obligations here, and going this far just to be ignored seems a little silly," Ron reasoned. "I have another idea," Ron added. "Suppose I treat your daughter and her friend to dinner if she agrees to sit at a table next to Bonnie and send me a live video on Facebook. I'd like to see Bonnie's surprised look when she opens the necklace box. I'll give you my daughter's number and you can call or text her and arrange everything, Boyd replied. I'm sure she'll be happy to help pull this off. Ron had some pizzas delivered to his house for a party he was throwing in honor of his 20th anniversary. He invited his parents, Bonnie's parents, his brother and sister-in-law, as well as Bonnie's younger divorced sister. They all expected to see Bonnie in real time when he surprised her with an anniversary present. Ron's 16-year-old daughter, Casey, was also there with several of her friends. Ron had prepared everything so that they could watch the video on the big TV screen. Boyd's daughter will sit as close to Bonnie as she can without arousing her suspicions. She will send the video to me via Facebook Live. She paid the waiter to deliver the wrapped gift after Bonnie and her colleague Sue ordered the food. We will see Bonnie's reaction in real time. It's going to be the best anniversary possible, considering we're so far apart, Ron explained with a happy smile. I've set everything up so that no sound will be transmitted from our side, so feel free to make comments, including what a great idea I had. Who is this guy with Mom? Casey asked as Bonnie came into view, holding hands with a handsome young man. Didn't you say she was going to be with Sue? I don't know who he is, Ron admitted. Bonnie's father just made a harumph sound and frowned at Ron's statement. When the couple took their seats, everyone gathered around Ron's TV could easily hear the conversation. It's very nice that your husband paid for dinner for us tonight, the unknown man remarked with a grin. I will do my best to make this anniversary unforgettable, at least for you. It'll be even better than your honeymoon. Then you'd better order a steak, Bonnie replied with a grin. You're going to need your strength. My honeymoon was epic. Really? The man asked. Did you have a lover then, or did your husband actually manage to ring the chimes? Ron did a great job, thanks for asking, Bonnie replied. You're the only lover I've had in the last 20 years, apart from Ron, of course. Fortunately for me, he started to slow down, the man replied with a grin. The good news is this. You're going to have a much better 20th anniversary tonight than most women. I'll take care of it. Maybe we've seen enough, Sister Bonnie suggested nervously. It's not really fair. Bonnie has no idea what we're watching and listening to. Why don't you turn it off, Ron? We don't want to miss Bonnie's reaction when she gets her necklace, do we? Ron asked resolutely, but with a very red face. Let's watch the wreck of this train a little more. While the couple was ordering, everyone heard Bonnie call her companion Nick. When the waiter left the menu, another waiter appeared with a beautifully wrapped package. Look, Ron must have delivered me a wedding anniversary present, Bonnie exclaimed in delight, tearing open the package. Isn't she beautiful? Bonnie asked, looking at the string of pearls. Could you fasten it on me? Of course. Just lean over to me, Nick said, carefully fastening the necklace. Having completed his task, he quickly ran his hands over Bonnie's chest. Your husband is so romantic. You're lucky to have such a handsome man, an elderly woman sitting at a nearby table remarked. True on both counts, Nick agreed with a smile. She has a romantic husband and a handsome boyfriend. Bonnie looked at Nick, but the older women just laughed at his comment. I gave you a pearl necklace last night, which I think looks much better on you than this, Nick joked, leaning over and kissing Bonnie on the lips. That's the difference between a husband and a lover, Bonnie said with a grin. I'm sorry, but I can't take it anymore. A beautiful red-haired girl who must have been Boyd's daughter whispered as she turned her phone. I should have stopped earlier, but I was so stunned that I had a shock. I'm so sorry about what happened. I will definitely erase everything from my phone. I have to go now. The TV turned off and everyone sat in stunned silence. One of Casey's friends spoke up first. It's getting late, we'd better leave. I'll see you at school tomorrow. If I go at all, Casey replied with tears in her eyes. Dad, is it okay if I go home with my friends? I feel like I need to be with them right now. Of course, honey, I understand. We'll talk tomorrow. Drive carefully, girls. Ron had to practically whisper. His throat was so dry. I don't know what to say, Bonnie's mother began. I think we got the wrong impression about what is happening. Bonnie loves you, Ron, and she's willing to give her life for Casey. Don't do anything rash. The rest of Ron's guests mostly repeated these words, quietly discussing the situation. After a few more minutes of calm discussion, Ron made a decision. I have something to think about, everything. Please find a way out yourself and give me some time to be alone and think about possible options. When everyone was gone, Ron took out his suitcase and started packing. Bonnie was surprised by the number of messages she'd received and missed calls since she'd turned off her phone the previous evening. As she looked through the messages, her heart skipped a beat. Her sister and mother demanded to know who Nick was and why she was so friendly with him. They insisted that she had broken Ron's heart, and Casey was also very upset. Her mother and sister had sent her at least a dozen messages each. Bonnie checked her messages to see if she had anything from Ron and found that she didn't. How did her family find out about Nick, and how much do they really know? Where are Ron and Casey? How could she get out of the hole she was in? She needed to find out exactly what Ron knew, and also what he just suspected. Bonnie realized that she needed to talk to family members to understand how bad her situation was. "Mom, it's me. I forgot I turned off my phone last night," Bonnie began as calmly as she could. "I see you've been trying to reach me. Is something wrong?" "Only if you think that the loss of your husband, the estrangement and embarrassment of your daughter, the shame of your parents, and the behavior of an inveterate fool can be considered wrong. I guess it doesn't bother you too much. Otherwise, you wouldn't be enjoying a damn pearl necklace from your boyfriend," her mother ranted. "Ron gave me a string of pearls for our anniversary," Bonnie said. "Why should that upset you? Your father and I have seen enough old adult films to understand what your young man meant when he said that you were wearing his pearl necklace." Bonnie's not too straightforward mother opened up. "Mom, what makes you think I'm going to do something like that? Why do you think I have a boyfriend?" Bonnie asked as fear tied a knot in her gut. "Don't play games with me. I'm not stupid," her mother growled. "Ron invited us to watch you open his 20th anniversary present at the restaurant. He's booked a table for you and your colleague. I think her name was Sue. We've seen the whole dastardly story. Your husband treats you like a queen and you don't respect him." "Did you hear me say that?" Bonnie asked, shocked. "How is this possible?" Ron asked a friend's daughter to do something like a live broadcast from her phone. He wanted us to see how pleased you would be with his gift. Then we were all going to call and wish you a happy anniversary," the mother said sadly. "It looks like this could be your last anniversary, at least with Ron. Maybe you'll meet your beloved boy again when everything settles down." "Mom, you know I love Ron. That other guy doesn't mean anything to me. It was just something to pass the time. These conferences are getting boring," Bonnie insisted. "Oh, that changes everything," her mother said sarcastically. "Ron will feel much better knowing that his wife is not a cheater, and she was just bored. I guess you left your puzzle at home. Mom, it's useless to call me names. How do I convince Ron that he's the only man I love? You didn't even convince me, so I'd say you have something to work on," her mother replied. "Watching you with this man is the worst thing I've ever seen." I really doubt Ron found it better. After talking to her mother, Bonnie thought about her situation. Her whole family had seen and heard everything she and Nick had discussed over dinner the night before. Remembering her conversation with Nick, Bonnie realized how bad her situation was. She decided to call Casey. "Casey, where are you?" Bonnie asked when Casey answered her call. "I'm with Morgan. She's trying to comfort me because my family has broken up," Bonnie's daughter replied. "We are not breaking up. Please come home and we'll talk about it." "Where is your father?" Bonnie asked uncertainly. "He moved into a cottage on the lake," Casey replied. "I don't think he wants to see you. He was so happy last night when he invited everyone to watch you open your present. You practically ripped out his heart when you showed up with a lover instead of Sue." "Please come home," Bonnie repeated, trying to think of something she could say to Ron to get his forgiveness. After finishing her conversation with Casey, Bonnie began to look around the house. She noticed that Ron's laptop and several filing cabinets had disappeared from his office. The closet in his bedroom was completely emptied. It was empty, like Hubbard's mother's closet. Bonnie fought back tears as she wandered aimlessly around the house and noted which items were missing. Ron didn't take any photos of her presence. This fact seemed especially depressing. In search of something to distract her from her crumbling marriage, Bonnie started cooking dinner for Casey. By the time Casey walked through the door, she had managed to cook a small dish. Casey was sullen and only talked to Bonnie when she was asked a direct question. Even then, Casey answered as briefly as possible. Bonnie admitted to herself that her daughter had good reasons to be angry with her, but hoped that over time, if not completely disappear, then at least decrease. The next morning at dawn, Bonnie walked into their lake house and found Ron hunched uncomfortably and passed out on a small couch. Numerous empty beer cans were scattered on the floor. "Ron? Honey, we need to talk. Can't you wake up, please?" Ron slowly opened his eyes and groaned. He gradually got up and, without saying a word, went to the bathroom. Bonnie decided to make coffee while she waited for her husband to return. A few minutes later, Ron, who had just taken a shower, returned to the kitchen and Bonnie put a mug in front of him. Bonnie hoped Ron would start a difficult conversation, but that hope soon faded. It was obvious that Ron had no intention of starting a conversation. Ron, I'm sorry about what happened. I love pearls. It was a wonderful gift that I will always cherish. I wish I had known that you would pass everything on to your family. It would be great if you would tell me about it. Fuck you, was all Ron could say, as he was furious at Bonnie's attempt to make him look like an abuser. Bonnie was surprised and hurt by Ron's response. In all their years together, he had never spoken to her in a disrespectful manner. It was a clear indication of the pain she had caused him. It won't help, Bonnie replied calmly. Tell me, what should I do to fix everything? You're the only man I've ever loved. That hasn't changed. Together we can handle this. Tell me, what exactly is the problem you want to solve? The problem of me surprising you with an anniversary present at a nice restaurant where I booked a table for you and a friend? The problem of my client's daughter agreeing to send a real-time video of your reaction? The problem that I mistakenly thought that you would appreciate this gift? Explain to me what the problem is so that I understand what you're talking about. You know what the problem is? Bonnie insisted. You saw me with Nick at the restaurant last night. I know you have dinner with others from time to time. Why do you think that's the problem? Asked Ron. You know perfectly well why this is a problem. I told you I was going to dinner with Sue, but I actually went with Nick. You overheard our conversation and found out that we slept together. That's the problem we need to work on. Just to be clear, is the problem that I, along with your whole family, overheard your conversation? Or is the problem that you spread your legs for other men? The problem lies in my behavior, Bonnie admitted, blushing, realizing that in her current situation it would not be possible to go on the offensive. You were just trying to be nice to me on our anniversary. You didn't do anything wrong. Okay, we're making progress. Now tell me why you've been making love behind my back. For how long? And with how many men have you been making love? Ron demanded. Is there any chance that the postman became her father? There's no need to be vulgar or offensive, said an emotionally stunned Bonnie. Of course, Casey is your daughter. Nick is my only lover since we started dating. Your comment about how many men I've had and that Casey's father is a mailman was just cruel. It's hard for me to understand your logic, Ron objected. You admit that you are a volatile fool, but you insist that a line be drawn. How big a cheater are you? You want me to be polite and understanding, not to mention gullible, when you tell me that you're cheating on one man. Are you proud that you haven't cheated on me that often? By the way, how long have you been making love to cute Nick and how often? You forgot to mention these important facts when you began to give up the title of city idiot. This was the third conference we've slept at together, Bonnie confessed with tears in her eyes as she finally began to feel the full depth of Ron's anger and humiliation. Besides you, he's the only man I've been with since we got married 20 years ago. It's going to be 2 nights together at each of the 3 conferences, Ron said. Have you ever made love to him anywhere else? No, Bonnie said. It happened a total of 6 times and I deeply regret it. I owe you an apology. Are you saying that a young stud like Nick was only capable of 1 night with a beauty like you? Has he ever used you more than once in a night? What's the difference? Bonnie asked, discouraged. We probably did it 3 times every night. And now the main question, Ron announced, is why did you make love to another man? Was making love to me so ungrateful, so mundane, so pathetic that you needed to find a younger and more satisfying lover? Of course not. I was bored and he was tirelessly chasing me. I was weak. It's not about you or our lives. It's my vanity, maybe a midlife crisis. He means nothing to me, I swear. I see. You've had sex with a man that doesn't mean anything to you, Ron repeated. Have you made love to Mr. Jenkins? With the guy who lives down the street and wears those ridiculous shirts? Bonnie asked, very confused. Of course not. I hardly know him, but I find him repulsive. So he doesn't mean anything to you? You just told me that you're making love to men you don't love and who don't mean anything to you. Jenkins fits that description, so why don't you spread your legs for him? I didn't say that I sleep with every man who doesn't mean anything to me, Bonnie explained, upset. I slept with Nick because he is handsome, courteous, and successful. He was stalking me. Are you saying that you will spread your legs only for the handsome, successful men who run after you? Apart from a few guys like that, are you a faithful wife? If you don't love the men you make love to, doesn't that mean you don't love me? No. I'm telling you that I made a terrible mistake and it will never happen again. Bonnie said with feeling. I love you, but not Nick. How would I know that? At our wedding and several other times over the years, you promised to be faithful to me. You are a beautiful woman. Beautiful, successful men will always haunt you. I can't trust you. Don't ever think that way, Ron. I love making love to you. He's special and makes me feel loved, Bonnie replied. And what did Nick make you feel that you kept coming back to him? Ron asked softly. Dirty, used, not like a mother or a wife. It was the wrongness that pulled me in. Not love. I have something to think about. You're standing here telling me that you love me, not him, but you're making love to him. It's hard for me to accept that you're willing to do much more for a person who means nothing to you than for the person you love, Ron reasoned. You seem to have forgotten that I heard a few minutes of your conversation. That asshole insulted me several times and you agreed with that. Do you remember how I slow down? That he'll give you a better 20th anniversary than most wives? You didn't object, did you? Why are we wasting our time here at all? You've found someone new. I accept that. It looks like you should too. Why pretend that you want to stay married? It's quite obvious that you didn't like being my wife. You're beautiful, successful, and smart, and I'm not bringing anything in. It was only a matter of time before you started looking for something better. Congratulations, you found it. Don't let the door kick your ass on the way out. Ron, we can't let this discussion end so badly. We have to talk it over and find a way back, Bonnie pleaded tearfully. You can ask your lawyer to talk to my lawyer. It's over between us, Bonnie. I'm going to divorce you. You left me no choice. That day, Bonnie went to work but was caught in the break room by an angry Sue. Why did Ron ask me about going to Atlanta with you for a conference? You know perfectly well that I stopped riding them after you decided to spend the nights with that Romeo from the Chicago office. I don't want you to use me as a cover for your infidelity. Did Ron call you? And what did you tell him? Bonnie asked dejectedly. The truth. I haven't been to the last two conferences. I got the impression that you told him that we were going to share a room and spend time at a conference together, Sue complained. I don't like being used like that. It won't be a problem anymore. Ron found out about everything on this trip. I think he's going to divorce me, Bonnie admitted. What other outcome could you expect? No decent man would be able to accept this level of disrespect. I was too damn stupid and self-centered to even think about Ron finding out about this, Bonnie replied frankly. He moved out. Don't you think you made your choice when you slept with that nasty bastard from Chicago? Sue asked a little more gently. I'm sorry you lost Ron, but I warned you that it would happen if you continued like this. I didn't tell him that if that's what you're thinking. I know, Sue. I owe you an apology. I abused your friendship. I'm sorry I didn't listen to you, but I was damn smart, and I had the right. I don't deserve a man like Ron. After he found out that Bonnie was cheating on him, Ron took a day off from work. He was determined to move all his belongings to the lake house before Bonnie got home. He didn't want to listen to her reasons and excuses for cheating. He hated thinking about life without Bonnie, but he knew that he would never be able to forgive her callous disregard for his feelings, as well as her ambivalence about loyalty and respect. Her unexpected visit the next morning simply exposed the huge emotional gulf that separated them. She didn't say anything that could help him forgive her betrayal. He made an appointment with a lawyer the next day. The next day, he was preparing to leave the office to meet with a divorce lawyer when he received a new email. It was from Bonnie. He wondered if he should read it or just delete it. After an internal discussion, he opened the letter. In her typical manner, Bonnie solved the problem head-on. He felt nothing but despair when he read her message. Ron, I know I really screwed up this time. I was so stupid that I thought you'd never know, and my actions wouldn't hurt you. I was wrong. Lying and cheating destroy a marriage, even if one of the partners does not know that this is happening. You deserve so much more. I've never wanted anything in my life as much as I want you to forgive me, but I won't dispute any of your actions regarding our marriage. I have lost the right to participate in your decision-making. I love you and wish you all the best. You are a wonderful man, husband and father. This is all entirely on my conscience. I accept this truth, although I hate that I did this to us. You may not believe it, but I love you and I will always love you. Bonnie. Reading Bonnie's confession and her plea for forgiveness, Ron fought back tears. It was like her to accept the blame for her actions when she had time to think about the situation. She was a strong woman who demanded the best from others as well as from herself. He felt drained and saw no reason to reply to the letter. He had nothing more to say. After the morning Bonnie arrived at Ron's lake house, Her only source of information about Ron was Casey. On Friday afternoon, Casey called Bonnie to tell her that she was going to her father's cabin for the weekend. Ron will bring her home on Sunday evening. Bonnie realized that this was how her life would go on. She spent a miserable weekend thinking about how much she had ruined her life. She had no idea how she could fix her mistake, or even if it was possible to fix it. Had she completely ruined her once happy marriage? When Casey returned home on Sunday evening, she looked rather glum. "Dad has decided to divorce you. He can't live with someone who has lost all respect for him. I saw him cry several times this weekend. I've never seen this before in my entire life. Do you have any idea how much you offended him? Your boyfriend is probably a lot better than Dad." "He's not my boyfriend and he's no match for your dad," Bonnie replied, shocked. "It was a huge mistake and I deeply regret it. Your father is the best man I've ever known." "I'm sorry both Dad and I are skeptical," Casey replied. "This isn't the first time you've slept with that bastard, is it? You've been lying to us for years, haven't you?" Bonnie realized that it was time to stop lying to her family. "I slept with him at 2 conferences before this last one. It was wrong, and I apologize." "Was it wrong? That's putting it mildly, don't you think, Mom?" Casey retorted angrily. "You betrayed your father in the worst possible way. Didn't you swear to be faithful when you married him? Did you cross your fingers at that moment so that it wouldn't count? I know you're upset with me, but not as much as I am. Your father is a wonderful man and a great father. You know that. What I did doesn't mean that I think less of him." "I was very stupid," Bonnie admitted sadly. "Whatever you say," Casey said and went to her room. Bonnie's life returned to normal. He and Casey barely spoke to each other. Her life raft was her job. Everything remained normal there, except for Sue's cold attitude towards her. She went to Casey's school events, but usually sat alone unless her mom came with her. It was the only time she had ever seen Ron. He always sat as far away from her as possible, and the other parents quickly noticed this. It soon became known that they were getting divorced. Bonnie periodically heard fathers, both single and married, making obscene remarks and suggestions. It was quite obvious that the rumor of Bonnie's betrayal had spread throughout society. Ron plunged headlong into his business. That was the advantage of the whole fiasco. The irony was that Bonnie would get half the business. His lawyer suggested several tactics that could reduce Bonnie's share of the business, but Ron refused to listen. "Bonnie worked next to me and even gave part of her salary to keep us afloat when we first took over the family business," Ron insisted. "I'm not going to deny the facts." Bonnie was very surprised when her lawyer explained to her how Ron was giving her half of his ownership of the business. A few years earlier, when Ron was going through a cash flow crisis, Ron's best friend, Dan, bought the company. Dan was a silent partner who owned a third of the company. By giving Bonnie half of their shared property, Ron found himself in a vulnerable position. He owned and controlled only a third of the business. "Tell Ron this is too much," Bonnie insisted to her lawyer. "He gave all his time and energy to the business. If he insists on giving me a share, tell him that I agree to 1/10 of what we own. He will keep control without any possible disputes." Ron was nothing but stubborn. When the snow melted the following spring, Bonnie became a single woman again, as well as the third owner of Lipton Enterprises. She couldn't even convince Ron to talk to her on the phone. He completely cut her out of his life. Casey told Bonnie that she wanted to spend the summer between junior and senior years of high school at the lake house with her father. Bonnie knew this was another attempt by Casey to punish her, but she accepted that she had earned her daughter's contempt. Ron, for his part, was delighted. He developed plans to increase the size of the hut by almost half. Owning a construction company, he easily completed the construction by the end of July. Now it was a 3-bedroom lake house. Each bedroom had its own bathroom and a good view of the lake. It was a completely modernized and comfortable house. On the first weekend of August, Ron organized an open day for his friends and neighbors at the lake. All of Casey's friends were invited. One of them brought an older cousin with her, whom Ron couldn't help but notice. She was a bright blonde who was very well complimented by a rather modest 2-piece swimsuit. During the day, Ron noticed that this girl was with him most of the time. She laughed at his jokes and flirted with him at every opportunity. "So, Dad, are you trying to get into Patty's little bikini?" Casey asked one day when they were alone in the kitchen. "Of course not. She can't be more than 25 and I haven't decided to start dating yet." "She's 27 and she seems very interested in you," Casey replied with a knowing smile. "She asks how long you've been single, how old are you, what do you do for a living? All the things that women want to know about potential husbands. I just met her today, Ron replied. Don't even think about mentioning the word marriage in front of me. I tried it once, and it was enough. I'm not hinting at anything except that she seems interested. I wouldn't mind if you dated her. She's pretty sweet, and you need someone to help you forget your mom. From what I've seen, Patty is in no hurry to get married. I think she's working on her career right now. But that doesn't mean she doesn't like male companionship. Thanks for enlightening me, Ron joked to his daughter. This girl is too attractive to be interested in an old guy like me, but thank you for your trust. I appreciate your faith in me. Bonnie's company occupied the top 2 floors of an office building in the business district. There was a very popular Italian bistro at the end of the same block. She usually had lunch there every Thursday with a few of her friends from work. Because she kept an informal lunch schedule, she often saw the same people having lunch at the same time. Bonnie and her work colleagues became friends with employees of several other companies located in her building. One afternoon, the bistro was unusually crowded, and Bonnie's group couldn't get a table. One of the employees of Benson Advertising, located on the 2nd floor of her building, invited her group to join them at a large table. They quickly accepted the invitation. After everyone had given their first and last names as an introduction, the conversation began. One of the women in the advertising group was particularly attractive and very friendly. Bonnie felt that she liked the good humor of this young woman. She smiled when the other ladies started teasing the woman. We don't all have a rich guy with a big house on Lake Henry, the woman Bonnie knew as Mary teased. It must be nice to wake up when the morning sun reflects off the lake. Yes, the young woman agreed, especially with a handsome guy who gently caresses me. Getting out of bed is a real hassle. If this is the guy who picked you up after work on Thursday, then I understand why this might be a problem, another woman said. He looks a little older than you, but he seems to be in good shape. He has all the hair, and he's pretty simple in appearance. Ron is everything and more, the young woman offered, smiling broadly. He's a really good guy and a very good lover. Bonnie's friend immediately asked the very question that Bonnie didn't even want to consider. You're not talking about Ron Lipton, are you? Do you know Ron? The young beauty asked before adding, You have to admit that he looks good. He's a great guy, but he used to be Bonnie's husband, her colleague said. I think we should change the subject. Don't be so dramatic, Bonnie insisted, leaning toward the young woman and holding out her hand. I'm Bonnie Lipton. I didn't catch your name. Patty Lawson. Ron said his ex-wife was beautiful, but I thought he was probably blinded by love, Patty confessed. Turns out he didn't do you justice. I hope you're not upset that I'm living with Ron now. I certainly can't blame you or him for that matter, Bonnie replied honestly. You are a beautiful young woman with an amazing figure. I can easily understand why Ron liked you. I wonder why Casey never told me anything about you. I can't speak for Casey, but I want to say that you raised your daughter perfectly. She is very smart and attentive, and also beautiful, just like her mother. I really like it when she visits us, Patty concluded. That night, Bonnie questioned Casey while they were having dinner. Why didn't you tell me that your father has a beautiful girlfriend who moved in with him? This is something that I would be interested in. Honestly, Mom, I didn't want to hurt your feelings. I know how you feel about Dad, Casey replied. I'm still upset that you cheated on him, but I don't want to make you unhappy because of your bad choices. Patty is actually nice to Dad. He finally seems happy again. This may surprise you, but I'm glad to hear that Ron is happy. He's a wonderful man and deserves to be with a woman who loves him, even if it's not me. I don't think she loves Dad directly, but she really likes him. She made it clear that in the next few years, her career comes first. He wants to achieve great success in marketing. Aren't you going to start dating, Mom? Have you been talking to your boyfriend since conferences? Do you think you can get along with him? Casey asked. With Nick, he's not the kind of person I'd be looking for in a relationship, Bonnie admitted. He is shallow, slightly rude, selfish, and vain. I've never thought of it as anything more than entertainment. It turned out that he made my life hell, even though I knew what I was doing. I shouldn't blame him for my weakness. Are you interested in anyone? Casey asked. You're still beautiful. I've noticed how some fathers and teachers look at you and go out of their way to be polite to you at school events. Honestly, I think Ron spoiled me for other men, Bonnie replied with a sad smile. The reason for our divorce is known to most people in the area. It makes women sympathize with your father, and men think of me as an easy prey. I guess I was easy for Nick, but I won't make that mistake again. I just don't understand how you could cheat on your father if you love him so much, Casey marveled. He has always treated you with love and respect. What went wrong? I've been asking myself that question, Bonnie admitted. I think I've started to take your father for granted. I knew he loved me, and I was very confident in this love. It somehow resulted in trying to try another man, maybe because I knew that I had a reliable back at home. Ron was my anchor. He was always there for me. I foolishly assumed that he would always be there for me. I could have lost my way a little bit, and he wouldn't have known about it, and my devoted husband would still be at home. I pray that you will find a man like Ron when you are ready to start a family, and use my experience as a cautionary tale. Never take more in a relationship than you give away. Be faithful, loyal, and honest. If you are thinking about something that could damage your relationship, discuss it with your husband. I've shown you what happens when you lie and cheat. Sometimes Bonnie bumped into Patty during lunch. She was surprised by how much she liked this woman. She was also embarrassed by the fact that she was looking forward to any news regarding Ron. Casey didn't want to tell Bonnie too much about her father. Being his daughter, she couldn't be privy to some of the more personal aspects of his life. Patty was eager to discuss Ron with her friends. Bonnie, it's pretty obvious that you still love Ron, Patty remarked one day when the two women were having lunch. He never says anything bad about you, but it's obvious that you've offended him a lot. I'm not here to judge you, but I have to say that I would never change if I were in a relationship. I find it hard to believe that you did this. Everything I see and hear from you says that you love and respect him. I would urge you to remember this when the flames of passion weaken and you are drawn into everyday life, Bonnie replied. I lost my way and paid for it. Sometimes it's an attempt to decide when to pump out the septic tank or what color to paint the house. Everything is becoming mundane, but that's okay. Ron is an honest businessman, an attentive, loyal friend, and an excellent father. I will always love him, but I betrayed him in the worst way a wife could. I've learned my lesson. I guess I got smart too late. I told Ron last night that I was accepting a position in Seattle and would be leaving in 2 weeks. This is a great opportunity for me. I told him from the very beginning that I put my career first, but I see that my news upset him, Patty said. I'm telling you this so you know what he's going through, and maybe help him if he gets depressed. He's a really great guy. He's just not my eternal boyfriend. I'm sure he'll miss you very much. Ron doesn't do anything on a whim. If he asked you to live with him, it means that he has a very high opinion of you as a person, besides your beauty. At the same time, he is a strong man. I tested his strength, but he stood up. He's really improved, Bonnie said with a slight smile. He's going to miss you, but he's a great catch, and I doubt his bed will be empty for very long. Yes, that's why I'm giving you the information first, Patty replied with her own smile. What you do with her is up to you. It had only been a week when Ron's best friend and unspoken partner, Dan, asked Bonnie to meet him for lunch at the bistro. The room was crowded, but they found a small table to the side. After the usual greetings and formalities, Dan explained the reason for his request for a meeting. Do you know that piece of land that Ron bought on Highway 21 near the river? I have a buyer willing to pay almost $2 million for it. Ron bought it for a song. The profit will be huge. Your third will be more than $500,000. Ron said that this land can be stolen and someday it will be very expensive. Is he going to sell it? Bonnie asked, wondering how she was participating in the discussion. That's the problem, Dan replied. He says he thinks the company would benefit more if it offered him a long-term lease. He would like the contract to specify that his company will build what the tenant needs for his business. That sounds like Ron, Bonnie admitted with a smile, thinking about how businesslike and grasping he was. I am sure that he has calculated everything, and in the long run his plan will bring more profit. What is the problem? I think we need to make a quick profit by selling the land. Planning for 10 to 15 years ahead is great, but I'd like to get the money now. You own a third of the company. I own the third one. Together, we could insist that Ron accept the offer and then pay us our share of the profits. Ron won't get hurt. Hell, he'd get $500,000 in cash to calm any ruffled feathers. Bonnie felt her anger building as she listened to Dan make his offer. Are you asking me to betray Ron's trust? Do you think money means more to me than Ron's ruffled feathers, as you call it? Let me tell you something. Ron will perceive this as a complete and utter betrayal on the part of his wife and best friend. That's the worst thing you could do for him. Is it worse than if his wife was making love to some young guy at a conference? You're his ex-wife for a reason. You've already betrayed him. He divorced your crooked ass. This is a chance to get a little revenge and get a good sum at the same time, Dan reasoned. We both know that description doesn't fit you. I betrayed Ron and I admit it, Bonnie replied in pent-up rage. I was stupid and selfish, but I never wanted to hurt him. He's better than both of us and deserves much better business partners than either of us will ever have. That's why I will never betray him again. I'd rather lose my last penny than hurt Ron like that. I proved that I was a lousy wife, and you just proved that you are a bad friend and partner. Ron will control my share of the company while I'm breathing. In fact, I'm going to make a new will to make sure that Ron gets my share after I die. You should know better than to doubt his business qualities. He's forgotten more than you'll ever know, Bonnie said angrily, getting up and putting a bill on the table to cover her half-eaten lunch. Then she looked into Dan's eyes. Please don't try to steal that too. Almost a month later, Bonnie opened the door and saw Ron standing on the porch. She was very surprised. Ron had been studiously avoiding her since the morning she returned from the ill-fated conference. Ron, come in. Everything is fine. Casey left a few minutes ago if you're looking for her, Bonnie said, surprised at how much she was excited about Ron's presence right now. I came to talk if you have time, Ron began, entering the house that had been his for more than 15 years. Can you spare me a few minutes? If you're busy, I'll try another time. I'm not busy, Bonnie replied quickly, and I just made coffee. Why don't we sit in the kitchen? I'm grateful that you accepted me so quickly, Ron said, picking up his coffee mug. You always made great coffee. When we first got married, I didn't even know how to cook it, Bonnie replied with a grin. It took me a while to make it work. I didn't marry you for coffee, Ron said. You had other attributes that I found much more attractive. I've never heard you call them attributes, Bonnie said, still smiling. But I've heard you call them Smith & Wesson a few times. Yes, you took out the big guns, and I was powerless to resist you, Ron admitted. Patty must have tricked you around her finger or some part of your body, Bonnie said. She's got a serious fever coming from her. I appreciate how well you treated Patty. She thinks you're a wonderful person. Her opinion of you is one of the reasons I'm here. A couple of weeks ago, one of her friends overheard a conversation with Dan at lunch. Patty told me about it before she went to the West Coast. She thinks your dedication and honesty were exceptional. I have to agree. After the way I treated you in the divorce, you flatly rejected Dan anyway. Many women whose husband divorced so quickly would want revenge or at least pay back. I would never do that to you, Ron. I know how hard you work on your projects and how much they mean to you. I also know that you will make sure that this land brings in much more income than Dan is looking for. He's a fool to doubt you, Bonnie concluded. I appreciate your vote of confidence. Patty helped me accept the fact that you are my partner, even though I ran the business as if it belonged entirely to me. I have to give you the opportunity to express your opinion and tell me what you want to do, Ron said. If you want to sell this property and split the profits, I'll agree. Dan's trying to persuade me to sell it, Ron said. I think he doesn't have enough money. He believes that if we sell this land, then each of us will be able to get $500,000 out of business without infringing on it. Would you like that too? I think you probably have plans for this property that will bring the company good profits and public goodwill, Bonnie replied with obvious pride. You've never been looking for a quick profit. I've always wanted to improve the area and make good money at the same time. You've got something planned for this site, haven't you? I've been negotiating a long-term lease with the main hospital to build an emergency room complex on this site, Ron admitted. It won't be as profitable as the luxury condominium project that Dan's company insists on building, but it will still make a good profit, and besides, we will have a contract for its construction. This will create jobs as well as goodwill. I guessed it would be something like this, Bonnie replied a little smugly. You are a good businessman, but you also invest in society. That's what sets you apart from people like Dan. Dan thinks it's better to make a quick profit. I do not agree with this line of thought. As far as I understand, he came to you to propose his idea, and you refused him. I trust you implicitly, Ron. You've never given me a reason not to trust myself. I will support your business decisions to the end, Bonnie promised. It probably sounds weird when you already know you can't trust me, but it's true. I was thinking about how Dan is trying to interfere in your business. It occurred to me that we should buy him back. If he doesn't have the money, he'll probably listen to a reasonable offer. He'll be happy, and you can run your business the way you see fit, Bonnie reasoned. I've thought about it, but I don't have the capital to do it, Ron agreed. We could sell this house, Bonnie suggested. I can rent a nice 2-bedroom apartment for Casey and me. Over the years, we have accumulated a lot of capital. The house is almost paid for and you've made some significant improvements. That will be enough for us to buy out Dan's share. Now that we're divorced, this is your house. Are you ready to sell it and invest in the business? Ron asked incredulously. I do not know how soon I will conclude a deal on the emergency care center. I can't guarantee that you'll get your money back anytime soon, or even that you'll get it at all. Do I look worried? Bonnie joked. Don't forget that I've been married to you for 20 years. You'll pay it back with interest. If for some reason you don't do it, it's okay. I owe you one, Ron. Money will never be able to compensate for my disrespect, but it will save you from Dan. I'll agree to that if you come and live in the lake house with Casey and me, Ron said, and then quickly added, You'll have your own room with a bathroom. It turned out very nice. I don't think that's going to work, Bonnie replied sadly. It's a matter of privacy, not to mention dating and all the drama that it will create for you. I'm sorry. Of course, you wouldn't want to bring a date into the house when your ex-husband lives there, especially that guy Nick. That would be awkward. I don't date and I'm not going to start, Bonnie replied. I stopped going to conferences and haven't talked to Nick since that disastrous trip. You're the one who's going to be uncomfortable. No woman wants to spend the night with you when your ex is sleeping in the next room. If I'm around, it will be extremely unlikely to find a woman who will agree to move in with you, although I do not rule out such a possibility. I've seen women fall in love with you. I divorced you because you slept with that guy, and then I moved Patty to my place. My behavior wasn't the best example for Casey, was it? My only excuse is that I was depressed and lonely. Another man took my wife away from me, and my self-confidence was pretty low. Patty was able to restore it for me. I'm sorry that I hurt your self-esteem. I wish this had never happened, but I don't blame you for getting carried away with Patty. She is a wonderful woman. You're a single man and you can have any relationship you want, Bonnie said and added, I don't think I've ever apologized properly for my behavior. It wasn't something that you caused or created. It's all on my conscience. I really screwed up and I'm truly sorry for the pain and inconvenience I caused. You really hurt me, Bonnie. I've never been unfaithful. I lived for you and Casey. Patty helped me realize that while I may not have been the perfect husband, I wasn't the reason for your infidelity either. You could tell me that you're not happy with our marriage or our life or whatever. I would have tried to do better if I had known. It's just that I was stupid, Ron, not unhappy. You've been a very good husband, a great father to Casey, and a wonderful lover, Bonnie said. I've lost my way and I deserve to be unhappy. It sounds strange, but being unhappy makes me happy. I feel like I'm paying the price for my sins. Can you at least come and look at the house by the lake? Ron asked. I would like to show it and get your opinion. I took advantage of some of the ideas that we've been discussing all these years when rebuilding. I think you'll approve. Casey has a volleyball match in 2 hours. Can I take advantage of this offer another time? Bonnie asked. Let's look at him before the match. We can go there together, Ron suggested, and then I'll drop you off here. Aren't you afraid that people will think that we are back together if we go as a couple? You usually sit as far away from me as possible, Bonnie said. Yes, I was a bit of an asshole, but in my defense, you fucked up me and our marriage. You couldn't expect me to be cordial to you, Ron reasoned. Actually, you've been a lot kinder to me than I would have been to you if it had been the other way around, Bonnie admitted. Your settlement offer was too generous, we both know that. It looks like this kindness is paying off, Ron grumbled. We're thinking of selling the house to buy out Dan's share. I still find it hard to believe that you're ready to do this. Honestly, Ron, you can take whatever you want from me. You've always been honest with me. I know you won't hurt me, even though I deserve it. Let me show you the lake house, Ron suggested, to change the subject and give himself time to calm his emotions. While Ron was showing the house, Bonnie was admiring the remodeling. You actually did a great job. Casey's room is very large and she has her own bathroom. This is the dream of every teenage girl. When Ron showed Bonnie the second bedroom, Bonnie felt it was time to talk about the elephant in the room. It's a lovely room with another amazing bathroom, but I can't stay here, Ron. It will be too painful for me to see you every day and remember what I have lost. We'll sell the house and I'll rent an apartment. I'll be fine. We have to leave soon for Casey's match. Let me show you the master bedroom, Ron urged. I know you'll like it. She's beautiful. You did a great job, though, as always, Bonnie praised, looking around the bedroom. That's why your business is so successful. You have an eye for details. Would you stay with me and Casey if you had this room? Ron asked sharply. I'd see you every day anyway, and I don't think I could stand it, Bonnie replied sadly. I didn't mean that she would be at your disposal alone. Ron explained nervously. I thought maybe we could share it. Bonnie raised her eyebrows, studying Ron's face. Are you asking me to share your bed? Since the day I found out that you cheated and I left home, I feel like shit. I miss you so much that sometimes it hurts. You screwed up a lot, but I've been sleeping with Patty for months. It softened your betrayal a little, but it didn't get rid of it. I wonder if we can get over all this shit and try to be together again. I don't want to be your prey, Bonnie replied firmly. If you want to punish me even more, I won't do it. If I move in with you, I will be completely faithful and I will expect the same from you. No more young beauties in your bed. It's just going to be me or I'll be gone in an instant. I've worked hard to regain my self-respect and I intend to keep it. I love you, Ron, but you have to totally agree, or I'm leaving. No one was more surprised than Casey when her parents walked into the gym arm in arm. She hurried over to them to talk to them so that no one could hear. Mom? Dad? Does that mean? Casey began. But Ron smiled and nodded before she could finish her question. Casey hugged her mother and hugged her tightly, talking in her ear. Welcome home, Mom. I love you, but don't ever cheat on Dad again. I have a friend with a single aunt who is even more beautiful than Patty.